My name is Elena Ward, and for the first time in years, I sleep in silence. Or at least, I try to. The kind of silence that hums, that fills the air so completely it becomes its own sound, louder than rain, louder than the blood that keeps whispering in your ears. Out here, in this forgotten house at the edge of a half-abandoned road, the world doesn't care whether you sleep or stay awake. The night just hangs heavy, pressing against the windows, thick and unmoving. It's been 43 days since I left the city. 43 nights since I packed what little mattered and drove until the skyline vanished in my rearview mirror. I thought I wanted quiet. I thought I wanted peace. But silence has its own kind of teeth. The first time I heard it, that sound, I thought it was nothing. Just wind, maybe. Or branches scraping against the siding. But it was too deliberate, too slow, like the measured rhythm of something alive. Pause, maybe, breathing. That first night, I froze in bed, barely breathing. My heart pounded so loud it drowned out everything else. The sound came again, closer this time. Crunch, pause, crunch, then nothing. When I finally dared to move, I walked to the window and pulled back the curtain. The yard was a smear of black and silver moonlight on frost, shadows of birch trees swaying against the old fence. But I saw him, just at the edge of the light. A shape, still, watching. I couldn't make out much, just the faint outline of a large dog, fur-matted and heavy with cold. His eyes caught the light in a way that made me shiver. Not from fear, exactly, but recognition, because there was something in that stare that felt human. I stood there for what felt like an hour, neither of us moving. He didn't growl, didn't run, just looked, like he was studying me. And then, as if deciding something I couldn't understand, he turned and vanished into the dark. I barely slept after that. By morning, I'd convinced myself I'd imagined him. The woods here are deep and wild foxes, deer, maybe strays that wander from the next town over. It's easy to lose perspective when all you have are your own thoughts echoing back at you. But the next night, he came again. This time, I didn't look. I couldn't. I just lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, pretending I didn't hear the faint scrape of claws on gravel, the slow pacing near the porch, pretending that my pulse wasn't hammering in my throat. The truth is, I wasn't afraid of him. I was afraid of what his presence did to me. Because for the first time since I left everything behind, I felt something again. Alive, seen. It's strange how loneliness makes you receptive to even the faintest signs of life. A single heartbeat outside your door feels like a miracle, even if it belongs to something wild. The third night, I left the porch light on. I told myself it was for safety, but it wasn't. I wanted to see him again. When I opened the curtain, there he was closer this time, standing near the old swing that creaked whenever the wind hit it right. His fur was a mix of gold and gray, the kind of color that holds light even in the dark. He looked hungry, tired, and yet proud, like he belonged here more than I ever could. I whispered, "Hey!" The sound startled me, my own voice breaking the silence. He lifted his head, ears twitching. I held my breath, waiting for him to run, but he didn't. He just stared. And for a moment, it felt like he was waiting for something too. When I woke the next morning, I saw tracks in the frost, large, distinct, leading from the fence to the porch and back. Proof that he was real. Proof that I wasn't imagining things. That day, I couldn't stop thinking about him. It's ridiculous, isn't it, to think of a stray dog like that? But he had come every night since I arrived here, always closer, always silent, as if drawn by something neither of us could name. I tried to focus on my work, remote editing for a travel magazine that didn't really travel anywhere anymore, but my attention drifted to the window every few minutes. The world outside was painted in gray winter light, the trees stripped bare. Everything felt hollow, as if waiting for something to fill it. That evening, as the sun bled out behind the hills, I stepped onto the porch. The air bit at my skin. My breath rose in pale clouds. I stood there for a long time, scanning the tree line. Nothing moved, just the quiet hum of cold and distance. Then a shift. A shadow. He emerged like smoke. One moment invisible, the next standing 10 yards away, head low, eyes fixed on me. I could see him clearly now. He was big, maybe a shepherd mix, maybe something else lean, but strong, ribs faintly visible beneath his thick coat. There was a scar on his flank, healed but deep. He didn't bark, didn't growl, just stood there, breathing. I knelt slowly, holding out my hand like I'd seen people do in movies, though I knew he was too far away to care. Still, he tilted his head slightly, curious. I could almost feel the weight of his gaze on my skin. "Hey," I said again, softer this time. "It's okay." But he didn't come closer. Not yet. That night, I left a bowl of water by the porch steps. I don't know why. Maybe I wanted to believe kindness could be understood without words. Maybe I just wanted something to come back to me. He did. When I checked in the morning, the bowl was empty, and next to it, a single muddy paw print, perfectly pressed into the wood. For the first time in months, I smiled. And nights blurred after that. Days felt lighter, quieter in a different way. Every evening, I found myself waiting for the soft sound of movement outside, the crunch of frost, the rhythm of his paws. He never barked, never begged, he just watched, his patience almost unnerving. Sometimes I'd talk to him through the window. Just nonsense, really. About the weather, the forest, the way the power flickered whenever it snowed. The kind of things you say when you've been alone too long. "I don't even know your name," I said once, laughing softly at myself. "But you keep showing up." He tilted his head again, that same curious gesture. And I swear, for a moment, I thought he understood. There's a rhythm to loneliness. It becomes a kind of heartbeat, steady, predictable. But when someone or something breaks that rhythm, even just by appearing at the edge of your world, everything shifts. I started noticing the small things again. The way sunlight hit the frost on the window, the smell of wood smoke from the neighbor's chimney miles away, the faint hum of the radio I never used to turn on. He was always there, somewhere in the periphery, watching, waiting. And though I didn't say it out loud, I started waiting for him too. Our maces. One night, I woke to a sound not from outside, but from within me. A feeling, like something calling me out of sleep. I sat up, heart pounding, the room dimly lit by moonlight spilling through the window. I went to the curtain. He was there, closer than ever before, right at the edge of the porch, head lowered, eyes reflecting silver. For a moment, I couldn't move. The world seemed to hold its breath. My pulse filled the space between us. He looked soaked maybe from the rain earlier that night, his fur clinging to his ribs. I could see his chest rise and fall, shallow but steady. Without thinking, I opened the door. Just a crack. The cold rushed in, biting at my skin. He didn't move. Neither did I. I whispered, "You can stay there if you want." Then I closed it again. When I looked in the morning, there were paw prints all over the porch circling, stopping right by the door. That day, I cried without knowing why. Loneliness isn't just the absence of people. It's the absence of being seen, of being witnessed in your quiet moments. And somehow, this creature, this stray with his silent eyes and patient heart, had become my witness. Each night he came closer. Each night, the distance between us shrank. Sometimes I'd hear him breathing under the window, a soft rhythm that felt like a lullaby. Sometimes, when the wind was still, I could almost hear his sighs, long, weary, and somehow familiar. I started leaving food out. Leftovers, bread, pieces of chicken. At first, they disappeared by morning. Then one night, I watched from behind the curtain as he approached, cautious, silent, and ate while never taking his eyes off me. There was something sacred about it, something that made me forget to breathe. When he finished, he sat there for a moment, looking toward the house as if deciding whether to stay. Then, without sound, he vanished into the trees again. But every night, he came back. End quote. It's strange how quickly the unfamiliar becomes essential. A few nights ago, I dreamed that I was walking through fog. Everything was white, endless. I couldn't see the ground beneath me, couldn't hear my own footsteps. I felt lost. Then I heard a low, steady sound breathing, and out of the fog, he appeared, walking beside me. Not touching, not leading, just there. And somehow, that was enough. When I woke, I could still feel the warmth of that dream. It lingered like the echo of a heartbeat. I went to the window. He wasn't there. But later that night, just as I began to think maybe he'd moved on, I heard it again, the soft rhythm on gravel, the familiar pause. He had come back. This time, I didn't hide behind the curtain. I opened the door. He stood at the edge of the porch, waiting. The moonlight fell across his back, painting his fur silver. I could see his breath in the cold air. "I don't know what you want from me," I whispered, But I'm glad you're here." He took one step forward. Not much, just enough to let me know he'd heard. Then he sat down, his eyes never leaving mine. I stood there in the doorway for what felt like forever, my hand resting on the frame, the cold numbing my fingers. And in that stillness, I realized something I hadn't admitted even to myself. I wasn't waiting for him to trust me. I was waiting to trust myself again. Still, now every night feels like an unspoken conversation. I don't turn on the lights anymore. I don't need to. I can feel when he's there. Sometimes I talk to him, sometimes I just listen to the silence, to his breathing, to the way the world seems to shift around the edges when he's near. He never crosses the line, never steps past the edge of the porch, but each night, he comes closer. And I let him, because somehow, in this strange dance of distance and quiet, I've started to feel whole again. It's not love, it's not ownership, it's something older, quieter, the recognition of two lonely souls who found each other in the dark. And though I don't know what tomorrow will bring, whether he'll keep coming or vanish again into the woods, I know this. I'll be waiting. Because some connections don't need words. Some just need to be witnessed. And every night, when the wind stills and the stars hang low, I can feel him out there, his presence like a heartbeat beneath the silence. He comes closer every night. And I let him. He comes closer every night. And I let him. But tonight feels different. The air tastes of change. The kind you can't see but can sense in your bones like a storm that hasn't yet found the courage to break. I sit on the porch steps, wrapped in an old blanket that smells faintly of cedar and rain. My breath curls upward in the cold, dissolving into the night. The forest hums its usual low, patient song, but beneath it, there's something else, a rhythm I've come to know. The soft crunch of paws through frost. The hesitant pause. The silence that follows when he's watching me. I don't even flinch anymore. My heart still stirs, it always does, but not from fear. It's something deeper. The quiet recognition of being seen. He stands at the edge of the yard, half shadow, half moonlight. His eyes catch the light like tiny stars, unblinking. For a moment, neither of us moves. The wind stirs a loose strand of my hair across my face, and I push it aside, my fingers trembling not from cold but anticipation. "Hey," I whisper, the same word I've said every night, softer each time. He tilts his head, the way he always does, like he's trying to translate the sound of me. Between us stretches maybe 20 feet of frozen ground, a distance that feels sacred now, the invisible space where trust is slowly being built. I lower my gaze, careful not to stare too directly. I've learned that with creatures like him, wild ones, wary ones, silence is a language too. You have to learn to speak without sound. When I look up again, he's moved. Closer. Just a few steps, but enough that I can see the rise and fall of his chest, the faint shimmer of frost on his whiskers. "You're brave tonight," I murmur. He stops, watches, listens. It feels like we're balanced on something fragile, something that could break if I breathe too hard. So I stay still. I let him take the lead. Minutes stretch. The cold bites at my skin, but I don't move. I can hear his breath now, steady, rhythmic, alive. And when he finally lowers himself to the ground, lying there just inside the line of shadow, I know I've been accepted not as owner, not as savior, but as something else. A presence. I whisper, "You can rest here." He does. End quote. The next morning, the world feels softer. The air smells faintly of thawing earth, even though winter still clings stubbornly to the trees. When I open the door, the bowl is empty again. There are paw prints all around the porch, looping, circling, stopping right by the steps. And there, a tuft of fur caught on the wood grain. I brush it gently between my fingers, warm still, somehow, as if it remembers him. It's strange how quickly this ritual has become part of me, how my days revolve around the hours before dusk, how the sound of silence itself feels expectant now, as if even the wind is waiting for him. I start talking to him during the day, even when he's not there. Maybe that's madness, but it feels like honesty. There's no one else to hear me out here anyway. I used to have a dog. I tell the empty air one afternoon while chopping wood behind the house. When I was a kid. His name was Bear. Big brown, always drooling. The memory hurts. The way sunlight can sting your eyes when you've been too long in shadow. He got sick when I was 15. I couldn't even go with my dad to the vet. I just stayed in my room and listened to the truck drive away. I pause, my throat tightening. I've never forgiven myself for that. Cast it back to the tax. The forest listens. It always does. And when the night comes again, so does he. And when to. The moon is full, silver-washed and heavy when I step outside. I've left food out again, small pieces of cooked chicken, a handful of rice. He waits at the edge of the yard, just like before, watching, waiting for permission he doesn't need. You can eat, I whisper. He steps forward, slow, deliberate, like water testing the edges of a frozen stream. His paws barely make a sound. I can see him now, every muscle, every breath, the way the moonlight catches the scar on his flank. When he reaches the bowl, he hesitates. Looks at me once, then eats. I stay still. I barely breathe. Watching him eat feels intimate in a way I can't explain, not ownership, not charity. Just two beings sharing space, each pretending not to need the other as much as they do. When he finishes, he sits, licks his paw, glances at me. I whisper his new name before I even realize it's left my lips. Shadow. The sound slips into the cold air like smoke. He lifts his head, ears twitching. His gaze meets mine, and something in it tightens around my chest. Yeah, I say softly. You look like a shadow. He doesn't move, but I swear I see something flicker in his eyes, a recognition, or maybe just the reflection of my own longing. When I finally go inside, I look back one last time. He's still there, lying down near the steps, head resting on his paws, eyes half closed. That night, I sleep without dreams. End quote. Days bleed together. Work emails pile up unanswered. The world beyond these woods feels distant, almost fictional. I live for the moments when dusk settles, and I hear him again. Sometimes he's closer than I expect. Once, I found him sitting right at the bottom of the porch steps, waiting, like he'd been there all along. I crouched slowly, every breath careful. You trust me now, huh? He blinked, calm, unafraid. The wind rustled the birch trees behind him, sending tiny flakes of frost spiraling through the air. It felt like a moment suspended between past and present, between who I was before and who I might still become. I'm trying to, I whispered, to trust again. He tilted his head, that same quiet curiosity that made him seem more like a question than an answer. And in that stillness, I felt something in me unclench. A week passed like that, quiet nights, careful distance. Until one evening, when I opened the door, he wasn't there. At first, I thought nothing of it. Animals move on. They have their own reasons for disappearing. But as the hours dragged on and the yard stayed empty, a hollow feeling began to spread in my chest. By midnight, I found myself standing barefoot in the cold, calling softly into the dark. Shadow? The sound of my voice startled me. It had been months since I'd said a name out loud like that, months since I'd needed someone enough to call for them. The forest didn't answer. I waited until my hands went numb. Then I went inside, leaving the door unlatched, just in case. I was no. He didn't come the next night. Or the one after. Sleep became impossible. Every creak of the house made me sit up, heart racing. I started dreaming again, strange. Heavy dreams where I was running through endless trees, calling his name, hearing footsteps but never finding him. By the fourth night, I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed my flashlight and walked into the woods. The snow crunched beneath my boots. My breath fogged the air. The beam of light cut through the darkness, catching glimpses of branches, old leaves, the faint glimmer of frost. Shadow, I whispered again. Where are you? No answer. But then, faintly, a sound low, distant, like a whimper carried by the wind. I followed it. My pulse hammered as I moved deeper into the trees. The path narrowed. The air thickened. And then I saw him lying near a fallen log, his fur dark with mud, one paw bent at an awkward angle. Shadow. He lifted his head weakly, his eyes finding mine. He didn't move, didn't run. Just watched me approach. Shivering, exhausted. I knelt beside him, my flashlight trembling in my hand. His side rose and fell shallowly. I could see a cut on his leg, not deep but raw, fresh. It's okay, I whispered. I've got you. He didn't resist when I slid my coat beneath him, didn't flinch when I lifted him, just let out a low sigh, the kind that sounds too close to surrender. It took everything I had to carry him back to the house. Inside, I laid him on a blanket near the fire. He watched me through half-lidded eyes, still wary but too tired to move. I cleaned the wound as best I could, hands shaking. Warm water. Soft cloth. My voice low, steady. "You'll be fine," I murmured. "You're safe here." He didn't fight me, didn't growl, just closed his eyes, trusting me enough to rest. And that's when it hit me how easily the line between wild and home had blurred. He stayed for days. At first, I thought he'd leave once he could walk again. But he didn't. He lingered near the porch, sometimes lying by the steps, sometimes under the window, never far. I left the door open during the day, just enough that he could come and go. Sometimes I'd find him sitting in the yard, staring into the woods like he was remembering something he couldn't return to. I understood that feeling. One afternoon, as the light faded to gold, I sat beside him on the porch. The silence between us was different now, warmer, full of quiet acceptance. "You know," I said softly, "I used to think being alone meant being strong." He glanced at me, ears twitching. "But maybe it's the opposite. Maybe being strong means letting someone stay." He yawned, a slow, deep sound, then rested his head on his paws. I smiled. "Yeah, you're not going anywhere, are you?" The way he looked at me, then calm, unafraid, felt like an answer. "Yes." At night, I dream differently now. Not of running, but of stillness, of sitting beside a fire while a silent figure watches over me from the dark. I wake to the soft sound of breathing outside the door, and I know he's there, watching, guarding. Sometimes I talk to him about things I've never said aloud, about the city I left, about the person I used to love, the one who stopped looking at me long before I found the courage to leave. I kept waiting for someone to come closer. I whisper one night. But no one ever did. The fire crackles. Outside, his shadow shifts. And then you showed up. There's no response, but I feel something, a warmth, a knowing, the kind that doesn't need words. Airs of. Winter begins to ease its grip. Snow melts in patches, revealing the dull brown earth beneath. The forest smells of wet bark and renewal. He follows me sometimes now, not too close, just enough that I can hear his paws behind me when I gather firewood or check the old fence line. I pretend not to look back, but I always do. When I stop, he stops. When I turn, he lowers his head slightly, as if to say, "I'm here." It's a strange comfort, this silent companionship, this understanding that doesn't demand anything more. Sometimes, at dusk, he sits beside me as the sun disappears behind the hills. The light paints everything gold. His fur glows. And I find myself thinking that maybe this is what healing looks like, not sudden, not loud, but slow and deliberate. The way trust creeps in like dawn after a long, cold night. I think. But sometimes, I still feel it, that ache of fear, that instinct to pull back before something real can break me. One evening, when he moved closer than ever before, close enough that I could see my reflection in his eyes, I froze. The memory of everything I'd lost hit me all at once. The people who'd left, the promises that had fallen apart. I stood up abruptly, stepping back toward the door. He stiffened, ears flattening, confusion flickering in his gaze. "I'm sorry," I whispered, the words catching in my throat. I need a minute." He didn't follow, just lowered himself slowly to the ground, watching me with those steady, patient eyes. I closed the door between us, pressing my forehead against the wood. My breath came fast, uneven. Even kindness scares me sometimes. But when I looked through the window later, he was still there. Still waiting. Not demanding. Just there. And in that moment, I realized something simple, something small and infinite. He wasn't the one who needed to come closer anymore. I was. And now, every evening, I sit a little nearer. The distance between us shrinks until, one night, our worlds finally meet in the middle. He rests his head on the step beside my hand, his eyes half closed. I don't touch him. I don't need to. The warmth radiating between us is enough. The stars hang low overhead. The air hums with the quiet pulse of life. And for the first time in a very long time, I feel whole, not because he filled the silence, but because he reminded me it was possible to share it. He comes closer every night. And maybe this time, I'll be the one who doesn't walk away. He comes closer every night. And maybe this time, I'll be the one who doesn't walk away. The words echo in me as I sit on the porch in the dim light of early evening, the last threads of sunset burning low over the hills. The air smells of thawing earth and wood smoke, of something quiet beginning again. Winter is loosening its grip. You can feel it in the way the wind sighs softer, in the way the trees seem less brittle. Shadow lies near the steps, head resting on his paws. His fur catches the fading light, streaked now with warmth where frost used to cling. I can hear him breathing slow, steady, real, a sound that has become more familiar than my own. We've found a rhythm, he and I. Not the kind that fits into a clock, but something deeper. The rhythm of presence, of simply being here, together, without needing to define it. Every night, I think he's as close as he'll ever come, and then, somehow, he proves me wrong. Tonight, I'm not afraid of it. I sip from a mug of tea gone cold, my blanket slipping from my shoulders. The light dims to gray. The first stars blink awake. Somewhere in the forest, an owl calls out long, mournful, echoing. I glance down at Shadow. His ears twitch, but he doesn't move. He's too at peace for that, too still. When I shift slightly, his eyes flicker open golden, unreadable, and meet mine. I hold that gaze. There's no fear in it anymore, no boundary left unspoken. Just understanding. You're staying tonight, aren't you? I whisper. He doesn't answer, of course, but something in his stillness feels like yes. That night I dream of light. Not harsh, but soft, the kind that falls through leaves in the morning. I'm walking through the woods, barefoot, and he's there beside me. I don't see him at first. I just feel him. His presence is the anchor that keeps me from drifting too far into the haze. When I wake, dawn is breaking through the curtains. A soft, silver light spills across the floorboards. I rise slowly, stretching the stiffness from my body, and glance toward the porch. He's gone. For a moment, the emptiness hits like a blow, sudden, sharp, too familiar. But when I open the door, I see the paw prints in the dirt, leading only a few yards away. He's lying under the old birch tree, half asleep, one ear flicking at the sound of the door. Relief floods me, quiet but whole. I step outside barefoot, the wood cold beneath my feet. He lifts his head slightly, watching me. I crouch near the steps, resting my hands on my knees, not wanting to spook him. "Morning," I murmur. "You found your spot, huh?" He yawns, slow and deep, his teeth flashing white in the morning sun. Then he lowers his head again, unbothered. The simplicity of it, of him just being there, undoes something in me. Deverwid. Days stretch into weeks, though I've stopped counting them. The world outside my small circle feels distant, almost irrelevant. I answer the occasional work email, file the occasional article, but most of my time belongs to this quiet space, the house, the trees, and him. Sometimes he follows me down the old dirt path that winds toward the creek. He keeps a respectful distance, never quite brushing against me, but close enough that I can feel his shadow move with mine. When I stop, he stops. When I sit by the water, he lies a few feet away, watching the current with that same patient calm. It's strange how I used to crave noise, the city, the voices, the endless pulse of something happening. Now, silence feels like air. It's what I breathe. One afternoon, I find myself talking again, out loud, though not really to him, more to the space we share. My mother used to say that people are like doors. I begin softly. Some stay open, some shut without warning, some lock from the inside. He turns his head slightly, as if listening. I think I used to be one of those locked ones. I didn't mean to be, I just forgot how to open. My voice trembles at the end, and I look away, swallowing hard. A few seconds later, I feel it, the faintest brush of warmth against my knee. I look down. He's closer than before, not touching, not yet, but close enough that I can feel his breath. I don't move. I let him stay. The nights are different now. Lighter somehow. I've started sleeping with the window cracked open, just enough for the air to drift through, carrying the sound of his breathing when he lies outside. It's become my lullaby, soft, steady, unbroken. Sometimes, in the small hours before dawn, I hear him move, the soft scrape of claws on the porch, the sigh as he settles again. It's oddly comforting, knowing he's there even when I can't see him. But one night, a storm rolls in. It comes fast, a low growl on the horizon that builds until the house itself seems to tremble. The wind screams through the trees, rain lashes against the windows. Lightning splits the dark in fierce white bursts. I sit up in bed, heart pounding. My first thought isn't fear of the storm. It's him. I rush to the door, pulling it open into the howling wind. The porch is slick with rain. The world beyond is a blur of black and silver, rain hammering the ground like a drum. Shadow. I call. My voice nearly swallowed by the thunder. For a moment, I see nothing, then movement, a shape emerging through the rain. He's there, soaked to the bone, eyes wide and wild. He's limping slightly, struggling against the wind, but still moving toward me. Come on, I shout over the noise. He hesitates at the bottom of the steps, drenched, shivering. I step out, barefoot, the cold cutting straight through me. It's okay, I whisper, my voice cracking. Come inside. For the first time, he crosses the line. He takes one step, then another, until he's standing right in front of me, water dripping from his fur. His eyes meet mine, pleading, uncertain, and I step aside. He hesitates only a moment before walking past me into the house. I shut the door behind him. The thunder fades into a low murmur, distant now. Inside, everything feels still, heavy with something sacred. He stands in the middle of the room, dripping onto the floor, his body tense but not frightened. I grab a towel, drop to my knees beside him, and begin gently drying his fur. He doesn't move. Doesn't resist. Just stands there, breathing deeply, his chest rising and falling like a quiet tide. You're safe, I murmur. You're safe now. He lowers his head, pressing it slightly toward me. My throat tightens. For a long time, we stay like that, two quiet souls, both a little broken, both letting the walls finally fall. Heat is splod. The storm lasts all night, but neither of us sleeps. I lie on the couch, and he lies on the floor beside it, close enough that when I reach down, my fingertips brush the warmth of his fur. His breathing steadies. Mine does too. When dawn finally comes, the rain has stopped. The world outside glows faintly gold, the storm washed clean. He's still here. I sit up slowly. He stirs, lifts his head, blinks at me, as if unsure the night really happened. It's morning, I say softly. He yawns, stretches, and then to my quiet astonishment climbs up beside the couch. Careful, hesitant, his weight pressing gently against it. He settles near my feet, curling his body tight, eyes already fluttering shut. I can't help but smile. Guess that's your spot now. He exhales through his nose, a low sound that almost feels like contentment. And just like that, the house doesn't feel empty anymore. And days pass, the air turning warmer, the ground softer. Spring comes quietly, like forgiveness. The trees sprout pale green leaves. The creek swells with melted snow. Shadow follows me everywhere now, not close enough to trip me, but close enough that I can always sense him. Sometimes he runs ahead, bounding through the tall grass, tail flicking. Other times, he walks at my side, head low, ears twitching at every sound. I find myself laughing more real laughter, not the hollow kind that echoes off empty walls. One afternoon, we reach the hill overlooking the forest. From here, you can see the whole valley spread out, streaked with light. I sit in the grass, leaning back on my hands, eyes closed. The sun warms my face. When I open them, he's beside me, sitting tall, his gaze fixed on the horizon. The wind ruffles his fur. He looks almost regal, a creature born from the wild who somehow chose to stay. I reach out slowly, cautiously. My fingers brush his fur warm, coarse, alive. He doesn't flinch. For the first time, I let myself rest my hand there. His muscles shift beneath my touch, then relax. It's such a small thing, a hand on fur, a moment of trust, but it feels like the culmination of every heartbeat that led here. I whisper, "Thank you." He leans slightly into my hand, just once, then turns his head toward me, eyes soft, golden, full of something I don't have words for. In that look, I see everything the nights of waiting. The distance crossed, the silent understanding that sometimes love doesn't need form or language or even permanence. Just presence. And that evening, the sky burns pink and violet. The air hums with crickets, alive again after the long cold. I sit on the porch, and he lies with his head resting on the step beside me. The world feels lighter, like something that was broken has quietly healed itself. I tell him stories as the stars come out, stories about the girl I used to be, the woman I'm still becoming. I tell him how fear used to own me, how silence used to feel like punishment. And then, softly, I tell him, "You changed that." He lifts his head, ears twitching at the sound of my voice. I smile. "You really did." He blinks once, slow and sure, and I swear it feels like acknowledgement. Weeks turn into months. The house no longer feels like a hiding place, but a home. I paint the walls, plant flowers by the porch, hang a wind chime that catches the breeze. Shadow still comes and goes, sometimes vanishing for hours, sometimes for a whole day, but he always returns. And when he does, it's with the same calm certainty, like the earth itself delivered him back to me. I stop wondering if he belongs to someone else. I stop wondering if he'll ever stop coming. Those questions don't matter anymore. What matters is the constancy, the rhythm of his return, the soft thud of his paws on the porch that tells me I'm not alone. He's not a pet. He's not mine. He's something rarer, a reminder that trust doesn't have to be earned through control, that love doesn't always need to be contained. And one night in late spring, I wake to find the window open wider than usual. The air is warm, filled with the smell of rain-soaked grass and new leaves. The moon is high, silver, and soft. I sit up, listening. There it is, the sound of breathing. Slow, deep, close. I turn my head toward the porch. He's lying just outside the open door, eyes half closed, his head resting on his paws, watching me, but not intruding. Keeping his distance even now, as if respect itself has weight. I whisper, "You can come in if you want." He blinks once. Then, with the same quiet grace that's defined every moment of our strange companionship, he rises and steps forward. One paw, then another, until he's beside me. The floor creaks softly under his weight. He stands there for a moment, looking at me waiting, asking without words. I lift the edge of the blanket, just slightly. He settles at the foot of the bed, curling into a tight circle, sighing as his body sinks into the warmth. I reach down, fingers brushing his fur once. And then, finally, I sleep. Live. In the morning, sunlight spills across the floor. The air smells of lilacs. I wake slowly, my hand still resting near him. He stirs, stretches, and looks up at me with that same golden calm that has come to define everything I now believe about gentleness. "Good morning," I whisper. He yawns, his jaw cracking wide, and then lays his head back down. I smile, tears catching in the corners of my eyes, not from sadness, but from the simple fullness of it all. The silence outside isn't empty anymore. It's alive. The trees sway, birds sing, the wind chime hums softly, like a heartbeat. I think about all the nights I spent terrified of being alone, and how that fear led me here to this quiet, this creature, this unlikely salvation. He came closer every night, until I let him in. And now, somehow, in the gentle rhythm of our shared silence, I realize I've come closer too, not to him, but to myself. Because sometimes healing doesn't arrive as a person, or a promise, or a grand act of rescue. Sometimes it comes on 4 silent paws, with eyes that see you exactly as you are and stay anyway. Shadow breathes softly, his chest rising and falling in time with mine. Outside, the morning stretches wide and endless. And for the first time in years, I don't need the noise of the world to feel alive. He came closer every night, and in the end, I finally let him.